How do you create a reader persona for your book? In this video, I'm going to explore how you define who your ideal reader is so that you can find them and share your book with the world. In this video, I'm going to share tips for how do you approach creating your reader persona, what it is, and why it's important so that you understand how to reach more readers so that they can read your powerful story. Hi, I'm Charlotte. I'm your book coach and developmental editor, and I help women write, edit, and publish books that inspire and create positive impact in this world. And as we are writing, it is not only just important to focus on our writing, but it's also important to understand who is going to be reading our book. So no matter if you're writing a memoir, fiction, or nonfiction, it's tempting to think that everyone is going to want to read our books. And I'm afraid everyone is just not our audience, and that is okay. The truth is that our book is going to speak to the people that it's going to connect with the most and resonate with the most. And so what we want to do as readers is really think about how do we want to be connecting with them, who are they, and how can we then create messaging that's going to attract them to our book and to buy our book. So a reader persona is a detailed profile of your ideal reader. And yes, there might be readers outside of that end up buying our book, but this is really getting an understanding of who it is that we're talking to when we're sharing about our book being available to purchase. So think of these people or person as someone who deeply resonates with the purpose and message behind your book. So let's talk about how you create this ideal reader persona. So it starts with really understanding why you need an ideal persona or understanding who your reader persona is. So knowing who your reader is doesn't mean that you need to be writing something that's trendy or compromising your creative integrity and your voice. This is ultimately understanding your message. So it really starts with being clear on what is the message behind why you write, or the message and themes in your specific book that you're wanting to put out there. So this is ultimately about attracting the right readers when your book is published. So it's not about writing for the market, it's about writing with intention. So you're writing with intention in order to intentionally get that book into the right hands. So step one of building your reader persona is really understanding the big picture. So here are a couple high-level questions to get you thinking about what is this persona profile that you're building. So the first one is, who would love this book? So maybe you're writing a romance and there's a very dedicated romance community out there. So what are the types of people who love to read romance books? The second question is to think about what kind of person is already reading books like the one you are writing. The third question is, why would someone need or want the story or the message that you are writing right now in this place and time? So these questions get you thinking a little bit deeper beyond the demographics and into the motivation of your readers. So you're looking for that sort of intersection of your story's themes and your readers' lived experiences. I'm going to share a number of questions throughout this video, and you can find them all linked in the blog below, and also the example persona profile that you can build out. So if you need that visual or want to be able to look at it in written form, please click on that link below. So step two in building your ideal persona is really digging into the details. So this is where we're going to get a little bit more focused on the demographics. So ultimately, your reader is a real person, and they have lifestyles, they have values, and they have challenges. So a framework I like to use is just to give this person a name. You can even find like a photo or a stock photo where you can kind of capture who this person is. I'm very much so a visual person, so sometimes having like a name and a fake photo actually really helps ground me into who this person is and who I am talking to as I'm building my author platform or sharing newsletters or social media posts. I tend to think about that one person that I'm sharing this content with. So that starts again, you can assign them a name. You can also think about what age they are or what stage of life they are in. Maybe you write romance that is for women in their 40s and 50s, and so your audience is likely going to be potentially women in their 40s and 50s. If you're writing nonfiction and you're talking about pivoting your career during your 30s, then that might be, again, very specific to the age group within the 30s who are doing a lot of career changes at that time. You might also think about the location of where your readers are. Are they urban, suburban, rural? Are they living in certain areas of the world? All of the location can actually influence a lot of what we're exposed to and how we view the world. Maybe occupation is important for your ideal reader. This might not be the case necessarily in fiction, but it might be in nonfiction if you're writing specifically for certain occupations or for people in certain stages of their career. You might also think about the daily life of your ideal reader. So are they super busy? Do they have a lot of space in their schedule? You might also think about what are their values? How are they spending their time? Do they prefer to read over watching TV? Or maybe both. I know I do. You might also consider what are their challenges or pain points of your readers. Again, this can be really important to address if you are writing nonfiction specifically. You might also think about your ideal reader's desires. So what do they really want? Maybe internally or externally. You can think about your ideal reader as a main character. What is maybe a transformation they're seeking in their life? And so maybe your nonfiction book will speak to that. Or maybe your ideal readers are ultimately seeking love, and so they love to see the examples of healthy relationships in your romance novels. You can also think about your ideal readers in their reading habits. So are people reading, it's in that genre specifically that you write in? Or are they gravitating towards reading as many books as possible in a year, or do they savor their books? Maybe you're also thinking about their social media use. So where are your ideal readers most present if they are using social media? Or maybe they don't. So as you're building these demographic and very specific details around an ideal reader, think of it as really designing a main character. This is your reader, but ultimately they're kind of a character. So who is this character and why do you want to be talking to them? And again, if you want to see a breakdown of this, you can click on that blog post below so that you can kind of get that visual of how you can define each of those elements. So the third step here is really identifying your emotional anchors. So just like emotion is what connects our stories to our readers, we also want to think about how you as your author can also connect and have that emotional resonance with your readers. So you might ask yourself, what emotions do I want my readers to feel when reading my book? You might also ask what transformation or insight are they going to experience from reading your book? You might also ask, what do I want my readers to take away from my book and carry on into their own lives? So these emotional anchors can really help guide you, not only when maybe you're thinking about writing your book, but ultimately guide you in how you want to present you and your book to the world. So again, this is about storytelling in order to connect with your ideal audience. So something else to consider, and this is what I would say is step 4 in the process of understanding your ideal audience, is to compare to what is already existing. So you don't have to reinvent the wheel every single time you do this. If you're writing a nonfiction book in business, there's a ton of business books out there. There's a ton of romance novels out there. You do not have to reinvent the wheel every single time when you are trying to identify who your ideal reader is. So it can actually be helpful to think about where in the bookstore is this person hanging out. Maybe there are 2 or 3 sections they love to go to and they're reading a lot. So you can also ask yourself these following questions. So who else is writing for this reader? So is there an author that's maybe a comp to your book that you have already been kind of expressing to your agents or into the market so you understand where your book is going to be on the bookshelf? So what other books are they gravitating towards reading? Within the business world, for example, there are very specific, almost like textbook-like business books. There's also ones that focus more on mindset or growth aspects. So what are some comparable titles that your book is going to sit next to? So then thinking about what books your book might sit next to is thinking about how is your book different from what's already out there? So why is someone going to gravitate towards it? Because it's slightly different from what they've already read. Or they're going to gain something new or insight or a new perspective on a topic they love to read about already. And then you can also think about what shared themes or interests do you explore in your book that's also similar to these other books that are going to sit next to yours on the shelf. So this can be really helpful because that will help you articulate to your ideal reader who your book is for and why it's going to matter to them, especially if they like X, Y, and Z over here. So I do just want to add a little note for both memoir and nonfiction writers. So if you are writing a memoir, it can be really easy to assume that the reader is just anyone who's curious to read about my life. But even memoir does have a purpose beyond just your own personal reflection. So you might want to ask yourself a couple of questions. So the first is, who would benefit from hearing your story? You might also ask yourself, what part of my experiences mirrors something that they're living through right now or have in the past or might in the future? Another question to ask yourself is, what questions are the readers carrying that your story might answer or speak to? So this might be a little bit more if you are writing a nonfiction how-to or personal development. Maybe there's a specific transformation that your ideal reader is seeking, and you can speak to that transformation because you know that you've been there, you've been through it, and you know what questions you were asking at the beginning of that journey. And so you can start to answer those questions for your ideal reader. So the more you can tap into that emotional resonance, the more you're going to be able to connect with the readers exactly where they are and be able to present your book as the solution or the next step they need to take in order to create the life that they want. So I do have an example profile that I've built out, which you can find on the blog below at hernarrative.com. And ultimately, defining your ideal reader is just going to help you understand how to communicate what your book is about and how you're going to find them. So your reader is out there, they are just waiting to read your book. So the more clear you can become around who's going to enjoy reading your book, the quicker you can start building those connections. Just as a writer, you do not have to write for everyone. Everyone is not your audience. You just need to write toward someone. So who is that key person that you are writing your story for, or who's ultimately going to really enjoy your story? It's not about writing just for them, but it's about being able to understand what your marketing messages are so that you can get in front of the people who will enjoy your book the most. So I hope you found this video helpful. If you liked it, please like the video, comment below with any questions, and subscribe to the channel. Thank you so much for being here, and I will see you in the next video.